Good evening and Jai Hind. Namaskar to everyone. I'm going to read out a small passage. I'll begin with that. I was once asked at a farewell event before my retirement what I considered was the biggest achievement of my career. I look back at the time I'd spent in the army, thinking about the high points, from the now very famous surgical strike to the operational successes, awards and medals, promotions and placements. But it wasn't the wins that stood out as I replayed my career in my mind. It was the love and affection that I received from my soldiers, also my brother officers. A love that was almost like devotion. Most commanding officers receive this love and loyalty from their men, and there is nothing in the world as powerful and moving as these bonds that bind soldiers to one another. I was about to talk of this at the event, but then I changed my mind. Instead, I told my audience that the greatest satisfaction for me was the remarriage of the widows of two of my brave hearts who died during operations. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how I ended my book. This is my book here. This is what I read out to you is the last page of my book. This is how I ended it. My book, India's Brave Hearts. And I started the book by dedicating it to the Indian soldier. The Indian soldier who asks for so little, and yet they are ready to sacrifice their lives for the motherland. There cannot be a nobler way to live and die. As was introduced, I retired as a lieutenant general. But this book is not about great wars, strategies, relations between countries. It is about very earthy, ground level anecdotes of what life is like on the LOC. And it is also about the human side of it. It's not only bravery stories. And we will unravel that as we more and more as we go by. It's a collection of 12 stories, and which are all of which are my first-hand experiences, my first-hand accounts. I really thank God for letting me lead this life of a soldier. I've written about the brave hearts of Indian Army, whether it's they mounting that surgical strike or facing terrorist bullets, experiencing hardships and heartbreaks. I've written about their perils and pains on the LSE. I've also written about their triumphs. So this 12 real life stories bring out, like I said earlier, bring out the bonds of love and loyalty between officers and soldiers of Indian Army. I served for 39 years, 43 if you count include the training. I've had my successes. I've had my share of failures or upsets in military operations. I've had close shaves and survived. While sadly, some of my comrades did not make it. I made a village of close friends. This is the story of that soldier. This is my story. Story also of an army officer who learned how to live and train and go into battle with soldiers, who learned how to plan operations in such a manner that innocent bystanders didn't get hurt, learned to lead troops boldly, take decisions when there were no clear directions, deal with emotions, hide one's own fears. Uh, Counter terrorism as an operation is the trickiest operation. You have to get into the mind of the terrorists. There are no clear battle lines. There are no clear battle zones. This is our land. This is their land across the border, and we fight. And this is a mountain peak. We got to capture it. They are holding it. We dislodge them. This happens in Kargil. This happened in wars. This happens anywhere. This is our objective. So we have to capture our objective. There is no objective in counterterrorism. You get into the mind of the soldier. He occupies a space. You occupy that space. That means you have to dislodge him. There are innocent bystanders in that building that he's seeking shelter in, whether by design or by coercion. You have to dislodge him from the mind space of the youth whose mind he's occupying also. So I am very fond of using this sentence. In another publication, I've written an article by this name saying counterterrorism is the trickiest operation. It is like playing chess with live bullets. Okay, so now coming back to the matter, every infantry officer, I'm an infantry officer, every infantry officer aspires to command his own battalion. We grew up in one battalion. I am from 8th Battalion, the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry. We grew up in that battalion. I went there as a second lieutenant. I commanded the battalion as a colonel. After the colonel's rank, you keep getting promoted and you keep going. But then you cannot be commanding a battalion. The younger people come up and they command. You go into higher appointments. You could, if you are promoted, you could command a brigade, then a division, become a general, do other bigger things, but you can never ever command your own battalion or any other battalion. But you are never removed from your battalion. I go to my battalion even now 3 or 4 times a year, wherever it is. Last year, my battalion was on the line of, till last year, it was on the line of control. Even after retirement, I've gone there twice on the line of control. So, battalion never grows out of you, but this is how our careers progress. So, I was saying, every infantry officer aspires to command his own battalion. Sometimes, the career progression, there may be two officers who get promoted around the same time. And or if somebody is commanding a battalion and he just started commanding the battalion 6, 7, 8 months, 1 year ago, then the other one will have to go and command a Rashtriya Rifles battalion or Assam Rifles battalions or some other battalion. It works like that. So I was fortunate that I got the command of my own battalion. My battalion was deployed on the line of control just a month before I took over the command. Command tenure of 3 years, and my tenure in that LOC was also of the exact very same 3 years. So this is a collection of my stories, mostly from the my commanding officers' days, of the risks that we took, about the lucky escapes, about extraordinary colleagues that we had, the unseen aspects of soldiers' life. I'll give you a few examples. From the rigorous training to outstanding hospitals. Let me give you a little flavor. For instance, in one chapter, I write about the life on LOC. How do we understand what is LOC? LOC is how we live on posts. What are posts? They are on mountain tops, a group of bunkers. What is a bunker? 6 by 8 feet. The roof is also just about 6 to 7 feet. It has it has loopholes that you poke your rifles and machine guns out to fire on the enemy. Day in and day out, there is ceasefire violations, firing and shelling. What is artillery shelling? Shells are used to destroy the bunkers. That apart, the terrain there, it is snowbound in winters, treacherous nalas, forested mountainsides. So in those areas, in these circumstances, you have to dominate the line of control. And the added issue as of last 3 decades is that Pakistan is sending in terrorists across the terrain, across the line of controls. And we also have to now get into a counter infiltration grid. So I am talking about life on LOC, and I give a few anecdotes there. For instance, I narrated that in early 80s, I was in North Kashmir in Kupwara. I was a captain. There was no issue of terrorism or terrorists getting across those days. There were very few instances, if any, of firing across the line of control. Things were comparatively peaceful. And the posts, sometimes the Pakistani post, Indian posts are so close to each other that you shout across to each other. So we shouted across Eid Mubarak to greet them on Eid. They gave us semaiya, Eid ki semaiya khai, and we had that. So on one extreme was those kind of incidents those days. And then I talk about an incident. Similarly, over here in 99, when I was a commanding officer, I commanded from 1998 to 2001. This is an incident of 1999. Kargil war was on. This is on the line of control, but away from Kargil, my area. But it was very active those days during Kargil war. A similar situation where there were two posts, there and our posts were 50 kilometers, I beg your pardon, 50 meters away from each other. I had to negotiate. I had to walk on the slope facing the enemy from one post to another. And where you are exposed to the enemy, what do? We dress up as locals. We wear their salwar kurta and wear a shawl and then walk across. They will not fire at locals. There are fields in front. Farmers go. Shepherds take their cattle ahead. So they do not fire at the locals. They need their support after all when they infiltrate across. And but they shouted across to our post and said, "Your party is moving in front. Please tell them we are getting orders from our company commander that we'll have to open fire." Surprising, they did not open fire. They only said that they would open fire. And I told the my post commander shouted across to me, said, "This is what they're saying." I said, "You tell them that no, our people are not there. They are the villagers only." He says, "Sir, I told them. And they've already said, we also know that it is your commanding officer who's going." The LOC is very porous. I had been on post for a few days. That in that spot, the LOC actually runs through a village. And they said, your commanding officer is there. Now look at the mind games. We are trying to dominate the LC aggressively. In the army, we call it LC, what is generally called as LOC outside. And I was in a bind. I did not know what to do. Do I sit down because they have threatened us? What will the soldiers think? What will the other side think? That they scared the commanding officer of this battalion? No, it is a very emotional. There was no victory. There was no objective. But I did not want to sit down. My party also did not want to sit down. So what do? I told the JCO to shout across this message, and he did. My post commander shouted across to that post. Yes, our commanding officer and his party will walk across. If you open fire, if you fire at them, the first bullet will not get the commanding officer, is not likely to hit the commanding officer. But when you fire your first bullet, we will bring down such heavy fire on your post. Your post will be destroyed, and you will be responsible for the casualties that you incur. You tell your company commander that. And it was true. Their post, who shouted across, was just about 20 to 22 men, was very vulnerable because it was dominated by three of our posts. And several times we've had exchange of fire in the past where this post was destroyed with heavy casualties to them. We waited for about 5 to 7 minutes so that they could pass the message on telephone to the company commander who was way in the rear. And after about 5 or 7 minutes, I remember telling my boys, "Dare ya chale?" And then they said, we walked across. Those 20 to 25 minutes that we walked across in exposed to enemy fire till we reached the jungle line of forest, a line of trees, forested area, was the longest half an hour that I have spent. Any moment we were scared that, well, and I thought to myself, what if we all are casualties? What if I lose some of my men? Eventually somebody would say, "Bada hero banne chala tha." You see, so it is at that moment what you do when you live on line of control. You are in a very caught up in a very different dynamic. I have narrated somewhere that in the very first encounter that we had after I had assumed the command of the battalion, I became the commanding officer. Within less than a month, we had our first encounter with terrorists. And while we neutralized those three terrorists, we lost an officer. First encounter, new commanding officer, we lose an officer who was leading from the front. His bravery apart, it shattered the morale of the battalion. Even I was feeling very low. But next morning, I realized that the boys, the soldiers, my soldiers are looking up to me for leadership. I pulled myself together. I spoke to them. I gave them a talk about how we did what we did in 1971, how our battalion executed the highest ever attack in the world at Siachen Glacier. We won a Paramveer Chakra. Bana Singh has a post named after him. He, our battalion did such great wonders, and we have a couple of battle honors of 1971. I exhorted them in the name of the valor that our forefathers had created. And then, soon enough, and we said, we will pay homage to this soldiers, this brave heart, by ensuring that we don't let any terrorists operate in this area. That's the soldiers' way to pay homage. In the next encounter we had, just to give a lot of josh, I did not wear a bulletproof jacket. I did not wear a helmet. It was wrong. It is not supposed to be done. I was being foolish. I was acting braver than I felt. But it galvanized the troops. It got a different energy. They all, I said, no, I don't want to even carry a weapon. My boys will take care of my protection. And thereafter, there was no stopping them. We had such great operational successes in 3 years that we've set a record. My battalion had set a record in Northern Command. So when some of these risks that you take, I was trying to explain that it is so much different from a conventional war or battles. Some things you learn during training. Some things you learn intuitively, you learn on the job. Some things are your own style. But there are some things that you can never be trained for, that you can never be prepared for. Breaking news to the family is one such thing. Breaking news to the family that after a soldier has given a supreme sacrifice, it is something that you can never be trained for, never be prepared for. It is so tough. I've had to do that twice. During my commanding officer days, I lost 8 bravehearts, 2 officers, and 6 soldiers. As is customary, the commanding officer breaks the news to the family of officers, and the Subedar, senior most person in the ranks, he breaks the news to the Jawan's family. It is so tough, I can tell you that. It is very tough to break the news to the family that your husband is no more and the body will arrive tomorrow. You have been like a family together. And I know that I've been very ruthless and callous as a professional, but this is something that is very difficult. And the first reaction of the wife, the mother, the father stays with you. I will not talk about that.
किशन
Please
अभी एक
find
मीटिंग
out.
में जूम पर जुटे हुए हैं
But
तो शुरू में तो आया फोटो भी उसके बाद आवाज आ रही है कट के आ रही है क्या हो रहा है
when you break such news, the first reaction stays with you. Something that a lady said, it'll never go away from my mind. And I feel guilty. Every time I lost a soldier, I feel guilty as to why did I come back alive when so and so did not? And it is that feeling is very tough. Not only the bravery stories, of which there are a few, but I have also written about the anxieties of the families. There is a beautiful story of the phone booth. When I was commanding my battalion on the line of control, my wife, family, we have something called separated family quarters. As the name implies, wives and families, who because these are non-family stations, there is no place to stay there. The families live at a place of choice. My family was living in Jammu. There is a row of a few such houses there. Officers who are serving in operational areas, their families were living there in Jammu, in Sunjwan Cant. This is 1998 that we occupied that house, and right across my house, across the street from my house, across the road from my house, there was a huge, big mango tree under which there was a phone booth, a telephone booth. I know today's youngsters don't relate to telephone booth, but we have seen STD booths and we've seen telephone booths. And under that, in that telephone booth, wasn't a STD booth. There was an army phone with an army exchange. So anybody could talk to the army units. Husbands could call their wives, and somebody would call the family from house number so and so, and she would come there and talk, because there were no mobile phones those days. And I have written stories about that phone booth because whenever an encounter would start off somewhere in J&K, the families there would not even know initially where the thing started off when something started appearing in news, and everyone would sort of assume the worst. And until they got a phone call from their husband's unit or someone there to talk about the operation, everybody was sitting on pins. And then that area became such, in front of our house, ladies would walk with their children because everybody was sort of, was usually hovering around the phone so that the phone rang and they wouldn't know whose call it was. The anxieties of the families is something that I brought out. So what I'm trying to say, it's about different facets of training. I beg your pardon, different facets of soldiering. I also talk about training. I was a commando instructor when I was a captain. So I talk about commando training, how we used to train. The commando course in India is one of the toughest courses in the world, but it trains commandos. It has very tough rigors. Every infantry officer does that course, incidentally. Amongst other things, I used to teach how to catch a snake, and take out its poison. Why do we have to catch a snake? Teach them, we teach them, the students, to catch a snake as a part of jungle survival technique. You can catch a snake. Ironically, is one of the easier ones to catch and cut and cook and eat, because when your survival is at stake, that's what you can do. So I was talking about that I was once giving a demonstration to a group of NCC students there, how to catch a snake. A young lad, class 8, I remember, he asked me to catch a poisonous cobra with a straight stick. Normally, we are not supposed to do that. We have a little forked stick that we use. But I was telling them that it is in an emergency, it is possible to do that. So he egged me on. We are not supposed to do that as per our SOPs and procedures. But I thought to myself, these boys will go back to or they were from all military schools, all parts of the country, and they say, oh, there was this instructor, commando instructor, but he got scared when we asked him to do that, or something like that. No, boys would talk like that. So I went ahead and did that. Years later, I run into the boy, a captain, an ADC to president, and he tells me how he was motivated. He said, now I realize I've done that course. I realize how foolish I was and how brave you were. So I am talking about such stories. And later, many years after this meeting of ours also, this brave heart sacrificed his life in an encounter with terrorists. He was awarded Shaurya Chakra posthumously. I have written about what all I have experienced, such stories. And I also learned, as a commanding officer, I learned life lessons, whether it was tactics or empathy. They made me emotionally sensitive, but they also made me ruthless. These experiences taught me how to put faith in my soldiers and in God, to recognize the power of positive thinking. Above all, when things seem uncertain, the path is unclear, how can one take a leap of with faith and confidence in your officers, in your men? Years later, when I was Corps Commander in Kashmir, as was just introduced, Uri happened on my watch. The tragedy at Uri, the terrorist attack. I lost 18 young lives on my watch. People talk of Uri as a movie which gives them josh. For me, it was a very dark day, a dark Sunday. 18 soldiers lost. And I only find, I would only say that the silver lining was that that very day, the leadership landed up in my office. And I was not happy about it. I have narrated that. I said, why should the defense minister want to come today? This is what I told the defense secretary when he called me up. I didn't want it. But that day, the army chief was there, the Northern Army commander was there, the defense minister was there, the entire chain. And what was decided that day, without divulging any operational details, what was discussed in my office amongst the four of us, I think it changed the way India responds. All along as an infantry officer, I've felt that Pakistan causes us hurt by sending in terrorists. We are not able to respond in equal measures. We are only then forced to be defensive. This was a chance. The leadership was bold enough to allow it. Our military contingency plans are always there. And we, in the next 10 days, launched the boldest riposte ever. As is known, we struck across several locations, but we struck only at terror camps. And the difference was, why is it called surgical strike? The difference is Pakistan sends in terrorists and uses a deniability card. No, they were not our terrorists. We have not sent them. Whereas when our DGM announced it to the media, we said, we have done it. We took ownership. We announced to the world, we did it. And we did it because you did Uri. And henceforth, we reserve the right to respond in any way that we deem fit if you continue to export terror. So that surgical strike changed the way India responds. Thereafter, a year and a half later, Balakot happened. In between, how we stood firm at Doklam. See what happened in Ladakh this summer. By occupying certain heights, eventually, we have thwarted the Chinese. Chinese forces did not expect this kind of resolve and capacity to stand firm and to create a position of advantage. I think I have been very fortunate that I have lived this life and I got a chance to chronicle some of my first-hand experiences. And like I said earlier, this is not a book of great strategy. It is ground level tactics. It is our heartbreaks, our triumphs, our pains. And Army is such a great school, a place where I've learned everything I know. And above all, it is a family that has given me more friendships, more memories than anything else. It has been an honor to serve the Army and the nation. And I hope some of you who get to read it do also enjoy these stories. Yes, thank you, Mr. Sanjay Naik. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Yeah, in one of the chapters you have written, the chapter name is "If You Get There Alive, You Will Live." You have mentioned, one time, a soldier was grievously injured, who was being evacuated from a chopper which had just arrived. You just, tried to motivate him that, don't worry, you will be alive. You will get through. So I just wanted to ask you one question. Why can't we have a mobile hospital, say, for example, a mobile bus, which, inside could be a operating table, makeshift operating table, where we can stabilize the grievously injured soldiers. I remember after we got Burhan Wani, there was a mass scale of stone pelting. And in one area where encounter was taking place, the local residents had garroted the army evacuation vans where a major was injured. Unfortunately, that major couldn't be saved because of those stone pelting people, and army had to exercise restraint. Why can't we have a mobile hospital on, say, a bus where, we can stabilize the grievously injured soldiers so that we can save their lives, instead of taking them all the way to base camp or this Srinagar hospital, which is at Badami Back cantonment, as you mentioned in the book?
Your sentiment is laudable, and I understand that it is, you have the good of soldiers at heart. Regrettably, that's not very feasible because let me tell you, while we have specially fitted ambulances, that give more care than just an ambulance which ferries patients. But we don't have mobile hospitals, like you said, in that sense, because the terrain is very extended terrain. It's very areas are very far. And secondly, most of our patients are evacuated in a helicopter because they are coming from mountain peaks. They are actually coming from areas where if you come by road, it will take one day. So our ALH, and I mentioned this also, if you will recall, in that only that we fitted the ALH, the advanced light helicopters, with all those facilities, with the surgeon on board every time we went to pick up a casualty, and with all the life-saving equipment, golden hour as it is called, initial first hour after the after the injury or wounds have taken place. We do have that hospital that I'm talking about. 92 Base Hospital is a hospital where this slogan, this credo is a difficult. What a credo! The credo is if you reach there alive, you will live. And this is not given by some marketing team of the hospital. This is something that the soldiers there say. The hospital does not say. The soldiers say, if you get there alive, you will live. And I remember once there were a lot of casualties coming in, and then I went in, and the second chopper that landed, there was a soldier. I just held his hand. He was being wheeled out on the stretcher. This is what Sanjay just referred to. I said, "Beta घबराना नहीं, अब तुम सब ठीक होगा." He said, "सब तो मैं पहुंच गया हूं. अब तो जिएंगे भी और फिर से लड़ेंगे भी." He has that confidence. And 92 Base Hospital is such a great hospital. Everyone works selflessly. Everyone, and I brought out some other incidents in that story. They get such a lot of cases, and it's all about gunshot wounds, grade injuries, landmine blast. Somebody's foot is amputated, somebody's leg is amputated, and I have written there how strange it is to hear when a doctor says, "Congratulations, you lost only your foot." I mean, it could be worse. So yes, that fills up soldiers with a lot of confidence.
Basically, in your book, and also now you mentioned as a CEO, the most difficult part is informing the family about the death of the loved one. What I have read about the US Army, in the US Army, normally a senior army officer visits the house, and suppose he reaches there late in the night, he waits till the morning, till the light comes up, and then they ring the bell, and then they break the news. You can see they give a lot of importance, empathizing with the family. Don't you think we also should follow that thing? Because giving death of a family member on a phone, and look at how US Army does. I believe they do it much better than us. That's what I feel. Why can't we do the same instead of,
It's a good question. I strongly take an objection to your last sentence. Sanjay, you said, "I believe they do it much better than us." Now I will tell you. Please see a movie on Netflix. It's called Messenger. You are right that they go there personally. You are absolutely right. Who goes there? There is a separate unit which does this. So the incident takes place in Iraq or Afghanistan. Somebody who's posted in Washington or Memphis or Orlando goes to the house. They are professionals. So he's a corporal, a sergeant who goes. He has a standard line. Please see this movie.
I think I have seen that. Yeah, I think
He has a standard line, and if you have seen that movie, Sanjay, I'm not. It is their system. I am not because you asked me a question and you said it's much better than us.
That's what I feel. That's what I feel.
I'm coming to that. I'm just trying to explain. It is good for you all to understand as to why India does what it does.
Okay.
Our family values, our community values are very different from the Western world. So now, here a man goes, like you rightly said, he waits, he puts a lot of emotion into it. But he reads out a standard line. If you remember in that movie, different people react differently. Somebody starts hitting him, somebody starts going into convulsions, but he is duty bound to read out that line. He just keeps reading out. Secretary of Defense asked me to say that we appreciate the service and words to that effect, etc. What do? We wait for the commanding officer. In fact, I remember when I was a brigadier general staff in 16 Corps, and one similar thing happened when I was Corps commander. A lot of people say, why is army not announcing? And you also may have, if you caught the news sometimes, why is army not announcing that so and so is died? Why do we hide casualties? Sir, we don't hide. We don't want a ticker tape to inform somebody in Pune or Coimbatore that their son is no more or husband is no more. A ticker tape. We want the commanding officer or the Subedar major to break the news. If a commanding officer is himself involved in the operations, and you have read the book, Sanjay, so you know I'm talking about a particular operation where I had to come down, go to the booth in STD booth in Punch, and I've written all that.
Yes.
So, which is better? I breaking the news, who I know the lady, I talk to her by name, I know their children, his daughter and my son have studied together. What is better? A corporal from Washington, from a unit, unknown unit, even if it is personally standing in front, even if he personally reaches the house. A corporal from posted in Pune, because this family was Pune. A Nayak from some unit who has no connection with what is happening is going and reading out a letter, or me, who they know, and she sort of screamed, and I don't want to let that out here. You read the book. What did she yell at me? So you see, our family values are different. Our battalion, like I said, is like a family, and commanding officer is head of the family. So
He's also called father of the unit, if I'm not wrong.
the father of this thing.
Yeah.
At a young age, you are called old man by our officer, locally called old man. So my point is, I still feel that I disagree with you. Our system is better. They have their own reasons. A man cannot come from Afghanistan to perhaps say, or whatever. Their family values, their community values, their own overall values are very different from our culture, our society.
This incident which you talk about, Jinodua, about a bit of banter between the Indian soldier and the Pakistani soldiers, often exchange of sweets, etc. This is a completely different aspect. And then very soon you get into a very clinical mindset of treating each other as adversaries. How does it work?
Firstly, I will be very frank. We are professionals, professional military men. As a professional, it's actually very easy to talk to each other, even if it is not if it's not on a agreeable note. Only it is the terrorists who are different. So, and also please recall that I mentioned those days it was very different, and I'm talking of early 80s when it was easy to just say Eid Mubarak, Semaya. But overall, when it comes to such situations, we are again very professional to act as soldiers, and then one side does not influence the other side of our human being.
Does it still happen today? Eid Mubarak or Diwali greetings?
Well, place to place, a shouting across of a greeting might happen, but such exchanges do not happen now, except at designated places. There is a crossing at Uri, then there is a Punch Rabla Court crossing in Punch district, where exchange of sweets takes place as a matter of. But even that now has broken down. But till I was in service, that used to happen on specific days, on Independence Day also. But in last couple of years, we know how our relationships have been ever since the Uri attack happened, and thereafter all these things that have all the other developments that are fully known to the whole nation. Now it doesn't.
नमस्ते जय हिंद दुआ सर जी. बहुत देर के बाद हमें कुछ ऐसा सुनने को मिला है जो ग्राउंड रियलिटी है. अदरवाइज बहुत बार हमें या तो न्यूज़पेपर में से बायस न्यूज़ मिलती है या तो फिर काफी वन साइडेड न्यूज़ मिलती है. तो मेरा पहला सवाल ये है आपको कि जो एलओसी के पास जो लोग रहते हैं वो तो बहुत आपको डिफाइन कैसे करते हो कि दे आर विद अस एंड देन दे आर नॉट सपोर्टिंग द टेररिस्ट. वो मुझे थोड़ा सा क्यूरियस है उस चीजों के बारे में, क्योंकि वो लोग वहां पे जो रह रहे हैं अभी कश्मीर में एलओसी के नजदीक, वो दोनों साइड से मैंने उनको मैंने टेररिस्ट भी टारगेट करते हैं, और इंडियन मिलिट्री उनके ज्यादा भरोसा नहीं कर सकती क्योंकि दे डोंट नो, लेकिन उनके पास तो लाइफ थ्रेटनिंग इश्यूज है। दोनों साइड से नहीं बोल सकता, लेकिन वन साइड से श्योर है, आइदर यू सपोर्ट अस आइदर यू विल गेट किल्ड। तो वो लोगों का आपकी तरफ रवैया कैसा होता है, इंडियन मिलिट्री की तरफ रवैया कैसा होता है? और जब मिलिट्री कश्मीर में ऑपरेशंस करते हैं अगेंस्ट टेररिस्ट, वन थिंग, एंड जब वो बाढ़ आती है कश्मीर में तब लोगों को बचाते हैं, दैट टाइम दे वर appreciating military operations, but why they are not appreciating when आप जब भी कोई टेररिस्ट को पकड़ने जाते हैं जो वेल नोन टेररिस्ट है, दे नोस कि इट्स अ थ्रेट फॉर नेशन, उसके अगेंस्ट वो पैलेटिंग करते हैं, जो भी कुछ करते हैं, लेकिन वो ऐसा क्यों करते हैं? वो उनका ड्वेल बिहेवियर क्यों है उनका, उनके लोगों का? और गए 5 सालों में ये सब चीजें, घटनाएं क्यों कम हो चुकी है? 5 साल 10 सालों में कुछ क्यों कम हो चुकी है?
पहली बात, जो एलसी पर पहला सवाल, एलसी ऐसे इलाकों से गुजरती है जहां बसे हुए गांव हैं, खेत खलियान हैं, और वहां पे पॉपुलेशन आखिर तक रहती है। और आप ठीक कहते हो कि उनका खुद का गुजर बसर थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है उनको, क्योंकि उधर से वो भी टारगेट करते हैं और इधर आर्मी उनके ऊपर नजर रखती है। तो उनको, उनमें से कुछ बैड हैट्स जरूर होते हैं जो सपोर्ट करते हैं टेररिज्म को, और जब वो पकड़े जाते हैं तो फिर उनके खिलाफ एक्शन लिया जाता है। कुछ उनके ऊपर कोलेटरल डैमेज जरूर आता है, जब गोलीबारी होती है, आर्टिलरी की शेलिंग होती है, तो जाहिर है कि कुछ नुकसान उनके घरों पे पहुंचता है। हम कोशिश करते, जैसे हम अगर फायर करते हैं तो हम पाकिस्तानी पोस्ट पे फायर करते हैं, उसी प्रकार वो भी हमारे पे फायर करते होंगे। लेकिन अब आए दिन हम सुनते हैं जब कैजुअलिटीज हुई सिविलियंस को, तो वो इसका मतलब वहां पर भी ऐसा कोलेटरल डैमेज होता है। ये तो एक मैं ये यूज करूंगा लफ्ज की, मतलब ये तो आप, यू आर होस्टेज टू जहां आप पैदा होते हैं। हर इंसान जहां पैदा होता है वो वहां के जो हालात है उसमें उसको जीना पड़ता है। एक हमने एक्सपेरिमेंट ट्राई किया था पुंछ में काफी 2-3 डिकेड्स पहले, 3 डिकेड्स पहले, और हमने कोशिश की थी कि क्या हम आगे वाले लोगों को, किरनी नाम की एक जगह है, कस्बा इलाका है, तो उधर क्या हम आगे वाले लोगों को शिफ्ट करके पीछे ले आए, कुछ 5-6 किलोमीटर पीछे, और कुछ गवर्नमेंट ने उनको लैंड एलोकेट कर दिया कि आप यहाँ पे अपने खेत बनाएं, घर बनाएं। कुछ फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस दी गई। मैं उस इलाके में भी सर्व कर चुका हूं, और मैं वहां पे बाद में ब्रिगेड कमांडर भी रहा हूं जब मैं ब्रिगेडियर बना। तो उसमें देखा गया कि वो इतना सक्सेसफुल नहीं हुआ। इंसान के जहां रूट्स होते हैं वो नहीं छोड़ पाता है। ये तो मतलब इसी के ऊपर तो पूरी पूरी कौम चली जाती है, मतलब पूरी दुनिया में देखा जाए तो। सो इट्स अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट थिंग कि हम उनको शिफ्ट कर पाए। हमने एक्सपेरिमेंट वो ट्राई कर लिया है, इट डिडंट वर्क। योर सेकेंड पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन कि आप कह रहे थे अब पिछले 4-5 सालों में क्यों ये घटनाएं कम हुई हैं, चाहे वो स्टोन पेल्टिंग हो या जितना भी वो एंगर जो देखने को मिलता है। तो प्रवीण जी, ऐसे है, पिछले पहले 90s में बहुत ज्यादा टेररिस्ट हुआ करते थे। फिर धीरे धीरे 2003 में हमने एक फेंस बनाई, एलसी फेंस, जिसमें इन्फिल्ट्रेशन को रोकने में काफी मदद मिली। उसके बाद हमारी पकड़ ज्यादा मजबूत होती गई, हमारा ग्रिड रोबस्ट होता गया, और आज हालत यह है कि तकरीबन 200, थोड़े ज्यादा थोड़े कम, तकरीबन 200 के करीब टेररिस्ट वैली में ऑपरेट करते हैं। ये इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसीज का समन्वय से इतना पता लगता है। तो मेरा कहने का मतलब यह है कि कहां हजारों में थे, और अगर 200-250 की फिगर है, तो इतना सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस का कंट्रोल अच्छा रोबस्ट हो चुका है एलसी पर और उसके पीछे के इलाके में। अब वो जीरो होने में टाइम लगता है, और इसके लिए बहुत कुछ करना पड़ता है, खाली सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस नहीं कर सकती हैं। इसमें ऑल ऑर्गन्स ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट विल हैव टू कम टुगेदर। इसको रिजॉल्व करना एक पॉलिटिकल और एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव इशू है। हम आर्मी सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस सिर्फ वायलेंस को कंट्रोल कर सकती है, हम रिजॉल्व करने के लिए नहीं है इश्यूज को, और सब मिल के साथ चलेंगे तभी रिजॉल्व।
Does Pakistan selectively target civilians in Jammu areas rather than the Kashmir Valley?
There have been instances, yes. There have been instances of certain areas in the Jammu region being targeted. And I think we all have seen, the nation has seen it several times, that it has been done. It has been done, and to the extent that government has made bunkers in the villages. Bunkers means shelters. They are like concrete shelters. So if artillery shelling is going on, the villagers then come and move into that, so that even if a shell falls on top of it, there is a reinforced concrete roof, little more reinforced than a normal one, and also it has got a lot of earthwork piled onto it, so that it will not break with an artillery shell. So such bunkers are being have to be used sometimes. So this kind of thing does happen. Why they will not do the same thing in Kashmir is because in those areas they use those routes for infiltration. When they infiltrate, they want the support of the local population. So if they actually start causing casualties in the Kashmir local population on the border, on the line of control, villages close to the LC, they will not find that support. They will find a negative sentiment. So that is the reason why why it happens this way.
There's a question which generally talks about the Pakistan-China nexus. How much does it deter us in our operational approaches with Pakistan? Is there a lingering fear? Is there the war land fear being expanded further with China coming in? I mean, this is a genuine reasoning that goes on. I mean, instead of a one war front, you'll suddenly have a two war front. So the China-Pakistan nexus, how does it fit into your thinking in Jammu and Kashmir as you've been there?
Well, a two-front war is a very real-time scenario. The country's security apparatus, the military, all three, Army, Navy, and Air Force, have always recognized that this is bound to happen. We have to now look at the time whether there will be a collusive effort. We are prepared for China. We are prepared for Pakistan within our own means, within our own ways of doing things, whether it is gathering intelligence, whether it is preparing conventional forces, whether it is preparing strategic forces. Everything is being geared for both these adversaries, because we are in a very unique situation. We have unresolved borders with both countries. We have a line of control which is not yet demarcated as an international border, and hence we see what is going on for the last 3 decades or more. We have a line of actual control with China. So there is a very long part of the boundary which is not yet resolved. It is called line of actual control. The only difference was that we did not have exchange of firing across this line of actual control with China. We had some face-offs and standoffs, but we did not actually, did not result in casualties. All that seems to have changed this summer. So we are now in for a very different kind of dynamic, even with China. When we say collusive, that means if we go to war or a skirmish or a conflict or a situation like that with one, will the other take advantage of that? When we were embroiled with Ladakh this summer, at whatever scale we were, at several times, Pakistan started taking advantage of it and started shelling on the LOC. So Indian Army has to be prepared for both fronts. And we have to be prepared for both fronts simultaneously. And that is the two-front war. In fact, we always talk of 2.5 front, because this proxy war, this terrorists to be used as force multipliers during such a situation is a bigger cause of concern. So to answer the last sentence on this, to answer squarely, the military-wise, we are prepared for it. We whatever we need more, we are moving towards that direction. But it is something, it's a reality, and the country has to recognize it.
I just wanted to ask a simple question. Sir, I'm from academia, And being in the university system, I see a lot of challenges which are equally challenging. We are not pushing on the LOC, but in the academy also there are some challenges where the upcoming generation is being ruined tactically, because of the selfish interest of some people. So how to handle such a situation? Because I think the broad strategies which are involved on the LOC of managing the people, managing the locals, I needed some guidance on that front as to how we can manage and stop, the further future generation from getting dismantled and the country getting ruined.
Sir, I'm not very clear in my understanding of your question. Let me take a guess, and then you can please come in and correct me. You are talking about how in our the student body in the academia, also in the student body, how people are getting misled and how there are people who are speaking in the anti-national sentiment. Is that right?
Precisely, exactly, sir.
Yes. So, and I don't know whether you are referring to anything specific, but we have in the recent past seen such incidents. I'm going to take some names, but that's only to point out that we all know things that happened in JNU.
I probably belong to one of the systems which we will be mentioning, sir.
All right. So, so things that happened in JNU, things that happened in Jamia or a couple of other universities. I'll leave it at that. There are so the point is, I feel, and I will connect it to, I'm forgetting Praveen or somebody who asked me that question. I'm forgetting the name. I'm sorry. Something about how the crowd, Praveen Jagdale, I think, asked me that question where when the stone pelting takes place. If we combine these sort of situations, we realize that Pakistan has openly spoken about something called Zarb-e Momin. They've spoken about how to bleed India with 1,000 cuts. Pakistan openly invests in creating that narrative so that he creates that, foments that the trouble for us from inside. And it is happening here. It happens even in south of India. Let me be very blunt about it. And unless we take charge of the narrative, this is the mind space of the youth that they're playing with, whether it is Kashmir or a university or any kind of agitation or trouble that is taking place. They want to get into that, and they'll be happy to cause unrest. And there has several times there has been proof of that. So we have, what do we do? And that's your question. What do we do? I think we need to ensure that our narrative is there. We don't put out our narrative. Our narrative has to also occupy the mind space of our youth. And in today's world, information warfare is something that countries are actually investing a lot to control the narrative, or at least put out your own narrative. If we are not doing it, we are bound to face such problems. And I'm really happy at your question, Dr. Jindal, because this is something that should concern all of us. Otherwise, we will only learn at our peril. Today, in today's world, there are professionals who can step into this. I remember reading, and I'm sure some of you would have read this statement, that Mark Zuckerberg is the unofficial, unelected president, or whatever the term has been used, of a great influence in the world. Imagine he is telling us, I will ensure impartial elections in this country. Who is he? But that's a reality. He underwrites elections. So if that is the way the narratives are going to be controlled, I think we all have to understand that there is a lot of work to be done. It cannot be just left to a few government agencies. I mean it. We are adopting a very silo-like approach to this very important thing that Dr. Jindal has raised. And I only hope that we don't learn at our peril. I hope I answered your question at least. Even if I didn't provide.
About your mentorship, because the serious challenge I face as a teacher, it does not impact me, it's impacting the country. Yes. I'm concerned about it.
Thank you. That's why I said it's a very good question. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And Jai Hind, everybody.